We're going to talk to Lucas, who's calling in from Texas, is first up on the docket here. Lucas, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Hi, Lucas.
Not much, man. Just chilling. What's up with you?
Cool, nothing much, man. Doing the same. It's my first time actually listening to y'all live. I've seen some clips, but this is pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Well, welcome to the live show. It's crazy here. It's pretty crazy because we're talking to you. So, Lucas, tell us what's going on. I don't know what I was doing there. I'll be honest. That was all free for. But yeah, I see that you wanted to talk about some conversations you had with your family.
Yeah, I guess so. I was just kind of explaining, I guess, my situation with the call screener. I mean, to keep it short, I'm from a pretty big family of preachers. I was raised in a fundamentalist, super fundamentalist Pentecostal home. My dad is still a preacher. He does not have his own church anymore, but he travels from churches to churches and giving sermons from time to time. But two of my older brothers, they both have their own churches. And my younger sister, she's about to start her own church with the same, I don't know if you'd call it a company, the same church company that is my brother's church. She's about to start her own church. So my family is, yeah, super fundamentalist Pentecostal. It's not like the snake handling Pentecostal, but
sure.
Take away the snakes, everything else you probably heard, they're all in. And I'm the only atheist in my family, the only one. My family knows that I don't believe, but they don't know that I'm an atheist because, like, the way that I was brought up, like the word atheist, like that they think of atheists as like pure evil, like Satan worshipers. Like that word has a huge meaning to it, more than just a non-believer, you know. So they don't really understand what it means. So they know I don't believe, they just don't know I'm an atheist. But yeah, I was talking to the call screener about different conversations I had. I don't know if you want me to expand that, or if you have questions. Or
I mean, let me ask you this: You're an atheist in a family full of people who literally are starting churches. I mean, you've got a family member that's about to start a church.
Yeah.
Like, do you plan on having a conversation with them about that? I mean, obviously, that's kind of their business at that point. I mean, if they're set on it. You know, I don't know if you could do anything, but like, I don't know. That's a weird situation. If I knew somebody in my family was starting a church, I'd be like, man, should I talk to them about that? Like what that's going to look like? Because you're creating an environment, like you're like an authority structure there, you know, of how to live. Like some person in that church is, you know, telling people how to live their lives, right?
Well, this is, yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying, but this is the thing.
Yeah.
So. I'm older now. Me and both of my older brothers and my younger sister, she's older now. She's moved out of the house. Both of my older brothers, they live in different states. I'm living in Texas right now, but they live in different states. I'm not going to say where they're living. And my little sister, she's moved out now in the past year, so she's about to start her own place. And I think she's going to be starting the church that she's going to be preaching at is going to be in Texas. I'm in a weird situation because I'm not handicapped, but I have a mental disability as far as depression and anxiety goes. I had just to keep it short, I had my best friend was murdered when I was a teenager, and ever since that day, like depression hit me really hard when I was a teenager after that, and I never really got over it, and it's caused me a lot of problems as I've gotten older. And I'm doing okay now, but I still struggle with it, but it's affected me financially. I haven't been able to keep jobs. Even when I had good jobs, I wasn't able to keep them. So I'm financially dependent on my family still, even though I should be out on my own. I'm old enough, I should be out on my own, but I've struggled real hard due to my depression disorder from when that happened.
Yeah, that does make things more complicated, doesn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really complicated. Yeah.
Gosh. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so tough. Gosh, that's so tough. That's got to be one of the tougher things I've heard on doing this show as far as talking with family. I mean, that's puts you in a pretty bad spot. You don't really have a lot of leverage in that conversation if something were to happen otherwise. And yeah, because if you're the only one
really don't,
and
man.
you're dependent on them, yeah, gosh. Oh wow, I feel man.
Like I've had quite a few conversations with my family about religious topics since I lost my belief, and it's been 8 years now since I lost my belief. That they've known for maybe I'd say 3 years or so, because I ended up getting a good job and moving out for a while. And then when I moved out, I was expressing myself very openly, but then just out of nowhere, I don't know what happened. I had a real bad depressive episode. Just my depression kind of hit me out of nowhere. Nothing caused it. I don't know what it was. It just came back to me. It started affecting my work, and then it caused me to where I couldn't keep that job anymore. And then I got desperate, and I was like, I got to move back in with my family. And my family, they're loving people. They're good people. They took me back in, and I know that they really do love me and they really do care for me. But I've literally had conversations with my dad mainly where multiple times I've brought up to him like the idea that, if you think an accident happened to me and I were to die, you think that I would be tortured when I'm dead. And he has literally nodded his head yes.
Yeah.
He had a sad look on his face when he did it, but he literally nodded his head yes, like he agreed with what I was saying, like that I would be tortured. And I was just in shock, but I can't really argue against it because I want to keep a roof over my head.
Right.
So I don't want to cause too many problems arguing with them. So I've had so many discussions that just they always end up with me kind of just taking a knee to what they say. It's like, okay, I'm gonna let y'all win the conversation, even though what they're saying is ridiculous.
I've been there. Oh my gosh, I've been there, Lucas. When I first started doing this show. I started when I was still living with my parents at the time, and I drove an hour and a half to get to the studio, and I would tell them I was doing something else every single week, and would just not bring it up. Said I was hanging out with some friends because I knew this wasn't a good thing that I could have with them, right? Like there was just no way to do it. Now they know about it now, and I've had to go through all that with them, but that was so hard. That was the hardest thing ever, and and my parents are religious, but they aren't trying to start any churches, like there is a difference there too. So man, my heart goes out to you. What's
funny?
Are you at least plugged into any communities online? Are you able to talk about this with other people outside of your family?
Bro, Twitter is where I get my, I guess if you want to call it atheist fix. Like I'm on Twitter and I love to communicate with people on there, but that's pretty much all I got. As far as social interaction, like I don't really have, I've never even openly met another atheist face to face. I really I'm surrounded by religion. Just to give you an example, my older brother, he has this Zoom meeting he does with the church groups out here every Sunday night. Last Sunday, they were having this meeting, and I overhear it every Sunday. This is how crazy shit is. Like, just put yourself in my shoes. I overhear this last Sunday, and in literally almost less than a minute, I heard references of Noah's flood, the burning bush, the resurrection of Lazarus and the feeding of the 5,000. I heard all that shit in like less than a minute almost of their little church group meeting, and I'm just thinking to myself, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, that's a lot.
Sorry. Can I cut? Can I cut?
You can cuss as much as you want, Lucas. Let it out. It's all good here.
I'm just while I hear this, it just like I just don't get it, man. And I was talking to my little sister last night about it, and that actually might be something that you could comment on of what I talked to my sister about last night.
Okay.
Do you know the YouTuber Theoretical Bullshit?
Yes, I have. In fact, I've talked with him about being on this program. Now, if people would like to remind him on Twitter that I've asked him to come on, and we've talked about it before. He's been done stuff with some other ACA shows and stuff. It's just been a matter of scheduling. But yes, I'd like to have him on. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't make a lot of videos, but the videos he does make are profound. He makes a lot of good points in his videos, and I was showing with my little sister last night, who's the one who's about to be starting in church. I was showing her this video called God's Checklist 2.0. And it's a video where he pretty much goes through the whole story of the Bible as if he was God making a checklist of how God's plan would work out. And the way he does this video, like I've argued on Twitter with a lot of Christians about this video, and they try to point out stuff that he's getting wrong. But
sure.
I mean, in reality, taking the Bible literally, this guy's pretty on point with every point that he's making. And I was watching it with my sister last night, and it was like halfway through. It's like a 9-minute video, and like halfway through, I paused it, and because she had a concerned look on her face, and I was like, "Do you want to pause it? Do you want to stop? Do you want to ask me anything?" And she said no, and I was like, "Well, is there anything you disagree with?" And she was like, "I kind of disagree with what he was saying at the beginning," but she didn't specify anything, and I couldn't through asking her the questions. I couldn't get her to specify anything. So I was just like, just let me show you a little bit more. And at the end of the video, it gets to where, after he lays out the whole God's plan is according to the Bible, it comes to the point where this God demands that you worship him for this plan. Like that's like the last point of the video, and that's the one I wanted her to see the most. And after that happened, video ends, and I just asked her, like, is there anything in the video you disagree with? And she did not specify anything. I just could see concern all over her face, and I just expressed my concerns with her. I was like, why would a God demand respect? Like, why would it's like a human looking down at a mouse, demanding that the mouse respects him. It's like it doesn't make sense. And she didn't really have a good answer. But what was funny is that after I questioned her, she didn't really give me a specific problem that she found with the video. But I just, I told her I loved her and everything. She had to leave, so I just gave her a hug, told her I loved her, and then she goes, "Do you mind if I pray with you?" And usually I would not say this, but I told her I would rather you not. Would you mind praying for me in the car?
Ooh.
Yeah, I asked her, would you mind praying for me in the car? And she wasn't offended by it because, I mean, I love my little sister, and I know she loves me. We have a close relationship, but last night was the first time we actually got deep into talking about our differences when it comes to religion like that. And that's the first time I've ever told any of my family members don't pray for me.
Wow.
And I don't know. Go ahead and comment.
Yeah, no, that's good. That. Like, I want to say my piece, and then I'll let Puck talk because I haven't heard from Puck yet. But like, it's funny because I've done that same thing with people where like I make them sit down and watch the video and just be like, so what do you think? And it's hard because they may not, be willing to give a response right away. The other thing too is that like I see this now because if I watch, for example, somebody trying to show me a conspiracy video, there's things in there that I might not be able to respond to right away. But that doesn't mean that there's not wrong still. So like I keep that in mind too and try to give that benefit of the doubt for the Christians who watch this stuff, because it's like there may be responses that are outside of the context of this video, but if that person doesn't know it, then it might be good to seek it out. And I do the same thing whenever people show me conspiracy stuff. A lot of times it's like, oh, like there's probably a reason for this, because I can't be an expert on everything, right? But if you're a self-professing Christian and your goal is to spread the gospel, well, you should be able to handle those objections, right? Like that's kind of the mission. So that's I do kind of take that approach sometimes where it's because like you should want to know. And that's how I came to my journey of deconstruction. Because I genuinely wanted to know what the responses were. And you know what I found out? The responses were not good. That's the conclusion I came to. And then I changed my mind. But some people don't do that. No. Well, just aren't. There's just and that's a great thing of living in the day that we do, where we get to live online and we can figure out responses to stuff really quickly just by Googling stuff. You know, before you had to like go to the library and figure that stuff out. Shout outs to everybody who became atheists before the internet. I don't know how you did it. You guys are great. Props to you guys. But, you know, I'm a millennial. I needed that stuff in order to make it work. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. But I want Puck's take on this real quick. So
okay. So I love that you brought up showing a video and going over a video with your sister. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, especially if you don't feel comfortable talking about this and you know you don't have the right words and you can't construct all the arguments yourself. It's nice when someone else is speaking for you and saying, hey, this is why we don't believe, why we're not buying this particular argument. And you mentioned theoretical bullshit, but there are, for just about any kind of atheist there's going to be response type videos. If your concern is soteriology, go to Pine Creek. If your concern is science, more the science claims, go to Vice Rhino. If you're looking at philosophy, go to Cosmic Skeptic, and they'll do responses, sometimes real-time responses and debates with these people. So you can sit down with your family and say, okay, well, listen to the argument from your side, listen to the argument from my side, and let's talk about this. So I think it's super awesome that you're building that bridge.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. No, what you just said kind of clicked something in my head, and that's the problem is that I've tried to get my dad. I've never really tried with my mom, because my mom is just like she seems to be a passive believer. Like she will profess belief all day long, but my dad is the type. He wakes up at 5 a.m. and he goes in his little office in the house and he keeps it dark in the room and he's on his knees praying every morning. Like he takes it that seriously. My mom, she just kind of goes to church and goes with the motions. But when you talk to her, she's going to profess it strong.
Yeah.
I've tried with my dad. I've tried to show him a few clips from the Atheist Experience, and then one thing I tried was a debate. It was what was it? It was David Silverman and Frank Turek, I think. Yeah, it was David Silverman and Frank Turek, a debate they had where they were talking about the problem of evil, and they were talking about how why would God put the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden instead of putting it here or putting it here or not putting it there at all, And that was kind of the discussion in the debate. And then after that, in the debate, it led down. It was weird. My dad, he didn't really. I can't remember what he said to that, but what blew my mind is that right after that conversation in the debate, it led to slavery in the Bible. I don't know how it got there, but it's just weird that he didn't have a response to that, first of all. But when it led to slavery in the Bible, my dad tried to equate his he tried to equate his job with slavery. My dad is a structural and piping engineer making well over 200,000, probably 300,000 grand a year, and he wants to try to equate his job with slavery.
I've never heard that go over
so
well.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you really want a good laugh, watch any sort of debate about biblical slavery and watch the mental and historical gymnastics that people have to go through to justify what's going on there.
Yeah. The thing with the passive belief, I know a lot of people in my life that are like that too. You've got the people who are more hardline and some that are more passive. I'm sure you think this too, but even with passive belief, that just means passive bigotry in my experience, right? That means like, oh, they're just not afraid to say this stuff they really think out loud. That's been true for my experience for a lot of people in my life. But that's why I'm still willing to have these conversations. What's really hard about making atheist content is that there are so many forms of Christianity that if your version of Christianity doesn't align with what the atheist is talking about, then it's really easy to pass over it and say, oh, well, this doesn't matter. A lot of folks in the atheist community specifically make content focused on the fundamentalist evangelical kind of Christianity. One, because that's probably the most harmful, in terms of all the Christianities right now, but also because that's the ones where you get the most pushback from and where that affects us. But if you come from a more passive Christian place, you can see that and say, oh yeah, I don't believe any of this, but that doesn't mean there still aren't problems to the belief. You just have to dig a bit deep. But that's what it was for me. I was not an all out, wearing a having a picket sign saying that homosexuals are going to hell, stuff like that kind of stuff. But that didn't mean that I didn't have my own biases, or didn't mean that I wasn't thinking straight about certain stuff. So it's still important to have those conversations. I'm really glad you've decided to have the conversations that you have. I hope you can have the courage to have future conversations when you feel like you're ready, because it's not your responsibility. They're their own adults and they should be able to make up their own minds, but it's good that you're doing it. And I applaud that you're doing it despite your circumstances, because that's tough. That's tough. I can't imagine.
To be honest with you, with my little sister, me and her have a pretty close relationship. With my parents at this point. I mean, I've been a non-believer for 8 years now. They've known for at least 3 years now. With my parents, I feel like it's a lost cause. Sadly, I feel like they're going to die with their belief. It's just that ingrained into them. And with my older brother, I kind of feel the same about him. I have so much hopes for my little sister that maybe in the future she'll come to me and be like, Lucas, you know what? I don't believe anymore. And they'll be like, oh my God. That would be so amazing.
Hopefully.
I doubt it, to be honest.
But here's the thing, Lucas, you get to be that safe space for them when that does happen. So you're doing a good thing by talking to them now. I've had conversations with people who found out that I've done this show, and guess what? They don't believe anymore now either. And they've messaged me about it. And that's a weird experience, because then I got to play a small role. Not, sometimes it's in their deconstruction, but just coming out about it, right? Because that's one of the hardest things to do. There's a reason why everybody on the internet uses fake names and, does this stuff and their families don't know. Yeah, Puck is, that's actually on his birth certificate. But everybody else, it's hard. It's hard
That's
stuff.
Weird. I don't even feel like I've actually come out. They know I don't believe, but they don't understand what the word atheist means. And if I use that word, they would freak out.
Well, you get to be the one to lay it down and say what that means.
That's actually a powerful tool, because sometimes what turns people around is meeting someone who identifies with that label and realizing that everything that they thought comes with that label actually doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's true.
And you know, we talk about passive believers. There's passive unbelievers too. People
Yeah.
who just kind of go through the motions, even though they definitely don't believe, but they also don't feel strong enough to stop going through those motions.
Yeah.
Stop going to church and stop saying grace at every meal. You become their beacon, okay? Because when you are able to have these conversations, and trust me, sister is talking to brother, and brother is talking to uncle, and they're all talking. Someone out there is going to hear Lucas is out about this and is willing to talk about this, and they're going to seek you out, and your story becomes someone else's survival guide.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. So I'm really proud of you for doing this.
Yeah. How many people, Lucas, have changed their minds about LGBT peoples when somebody in their family came out as LGBT?
That's what does it.
Happens a lot, like every day. And you can be that space. It may be harder with your dad. It sounds like that's going to be tougher, but hey, look, the younger they are, the more likely they are to change their mind. That is just the statistical thing, you know? So I say good luck to you, Lucas. We got to talk to some other callers here, but I appreciate you calling in. Thanks for finally getting to a live show. And also, while you're sending them clips, send them clips at Truth Wanted. Maybe they'll like that. I don't know.
Have them call us.
Biased, but yeah, or have them call us. If you can convince them to call us, that would be really interesting.
Oh, especially during Theist month. They'll have someone who's on there.
Yeah, they will have a Christian on, and then they can talk.
Would you mind if I ask one more question? Take like 2 minutes for me.
One more question, Lucas. Real quick.
Okay, just this. The concept of hell. Did y'all grow up in a religious home? Was the concept of hell pounded into y'all's head growing up?
Okay, we'll talk about this as we're letting you go here, Lucas. Yeah. Thanks so much for calling. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's talk about hell. Hell was real in my household anyway. I had trouble even as a very young kid understanding just conceptually why that's a thing. It didn't really make sense to me, the eternal punishment stuff, but it was definitely a thing. Like, you definitely had to be a real Christian to believe in hell. Otherwise, you weren't a real Christian from my background. I don't know about you.
Catholic, so no. We had limbo, which is its own thing. I don't want to get into Catholic theology here, but no, like, the thing that made it so much easier for me was realizing that our modern conception of hell is more based on art and literature than what they were actually talking about in the Bible. Right. So if you're going to go by biblical hell, that's actually very different from what we envision heaven and hell as today, which is largely influenced by art and culture.
Right.
So
yeah,
that made it a lot easier for me. After I read Dante's Inferno, it's like, hey, that's where you got this idea.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. When you do look in the Bible and you realize how scant the references are to hell, and when they are talking about it, they're talking about different things at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's not all the same concept, and it's definitely not what's depicted in popular media. So it is really interesting to see that. And also, just it's really terrible, just a terrible thing. That's one of those things, like the things with the demons and stuff, where it's like, I kind of draw a hard line there, because you actually cause mental harm by introducing those ideas to people. And so, you know, it's one thing to respect another person's belief. It's another thing to like influence that on vulnerable populations, specifically children, and also people who do struggle with mental illness, who can take that and like turn it into something that can negatively harm them, that is unnecessary in their lives. Right. And unnecessary to their well-being. So yeah, I don't like it when people talk about it. It's not great.
No, I think I have a better idea of what you're talking about. The idea of using it as like a threat, like if you don't behave, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And that's, it crosses such a line when you use that on people who don't have the capacity to do that research on their own.
Yep.
And when you're trying to use it as a scare tactic, which, by the way, that sticks with you. Okay, there are people who get told that, and 20, 30 years later, how many calls have we gotten on the ACA saying, I have this fear of hell? I would be an atheist now if I wasn't so afraid of hell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I know a lot of atheist families with kids, and their kids are very well behaved. Didn't have to introduce hell in order to influence that good behavior. So, you know, maybe think about that if that's your deal there.